Hi, this is Ken
Okay.
McCarthy of Jazz on the Tube, and we've got an exciting report from Ivor Miller. If you follow what we do closely, you know that we had a great interview with Ivor many months ago, and we're going to be talking about the projects that he's doing and some of the help that we're giving on the video side, on the uploading side. But most important, Ivor's just come back from Havana. I'm very jealous. I dream about Havana, and I have no idea when I'm going to get there again. So perhaps, Ivor, you could just give us your on the man on the scene report about what's happening down there.
Greetings, Ken. Thank you so much for your interest. Yes, I just returned from 3 weeks in Havana. I was there in January to early February, and I was very privileged to attend the International Havana Jazz Festival.
Ah.
It was held mainly in the National Theater in the Plaza of the Revolution. A lot of really, really amazing groups came in, including Roberto Fonseca, who I understand came in from Paris.
Ah.
A wonderful, wonderful Havana pianist whose work I particularly love, and many other people. We also got to hear Los Muñequitos de Matanzas, who
Ah.
came in and they played at the Casa de la Música in a neighborhood very close to the National Theater. It's called the La Timba, and it was so exciting to hear the Muñequitos. I've been listening to them since 1990 when I first went to Cuba, 1991. And what we saw this time was the grandchildren of the founders, many of the younger generation, and they were just so strong and united and powerful and joyful. And it was really exciting to see the younger generation holding the traditions and bringing them into the present. That we hear a lot of negative things about young people today, but this was a wonderful example of um, young people learning from their elders and making that heritage their own into the future.
You know, it's such a
So hooray,
it's su-
muñequitos.
it's such a the original members, some of whom are still alive, such a profound group, and
Mm-hmm.
the challenge of transmitting that to a modern generation with all the distractions and all the because that group grew up in a very specific time and place, where things were a little bit simpler, not easier, but maybe simpler with less distraction. And so for this artistic impulse, this deep creative impulse to be passed on to the new modern generation, I think is a huge accomplishment, as you point out. I want to say to everybody, Ivor, had you ever been to the Havana Jazz Festival before?
Many times,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
I remember in the 1990s in some of its earlier versions hearing Frank Emilio and Los Amigos play, which was absolutely thrilling. One of my favorite groups, Descarga Music.
So you can testify to the fact that that festival, the Havana Jazz Festival, might be. I mean, for my money, it might be the best music festival on earth. Now, I guess that's a super hyperbole, but we could certainly put it in the very, very, very top of the great music festivals that take place on the planet. Would that be fair?
Well, I haven't. That sounds okay to me. It's a wonderful festival. It showcases a lot of great Havana and wider Cuban talent, but it also pulls in a lot of wonderful musicians from all over the planet who come in and exchange with the Cubans. It's wonderful.
Yeah, I found it to be.
I've
Sorry, go ahead.
I've never had a bad experience at that festival. It's always been 5 star, upper notch, uplifting.
I've been going to jazz festivals since the 70s, and I love them all. But there's just something so special about this one. And as you point out, all the great musicians from Cuba come out for it, whether they're jazz musicians or
Hmm.
not. And they participate. And there's a lot of mixing and matching. People that might normally never play together under normal circumstances suddenly are on the stage
Hmm.
together. Uh, and then, as you mentioned, the foreign guests, which is always a thrill for the Cubans to have, visitors from around the world, and people bring their enthusiasm and their love for Cuban music, and the whole thing is just a huge, marvelous party. Uh, what's life like for the average Cuban person right now? It must be quite challenging and difficult.
Yeah, very tough. I have a good friend who drives me around in his car, and his expression was, "This is esto es una película de terror. Living in Havana is like a horror movie right now."
Uh,
The roads are filled with potholes. So there's a lot of infrastructure has collapsed. Um, the food situation is grim. Economic situation is very tight. So yeah, it was very stressful, and people are trying to leave anywhere they can. Many people are. We saw the embassies with long lines of people trying to get to Spain, get to Mexico, and so on. It's a real crisis. Yet, Cuba is a place that's not unused to crises, and you know, people are very resourceful. And I was there to finish research on our current translation of Lily Cabrera's La Sociedad Secreta Abacoa,
mm.
translated as the Abacoa Secret Society. And so I was working with a lot of my teachers in the Abacoa tradition, and the culture continues. There was a lot of ceremonies, even during the COVID time, and the bata players were having their ceremonies, and that is always so inspiring to see this collective heritage that comes from Africa centuries ago continuing to develop and adapt to the current situation.
I understand that the
So that
from friends from pardon me, I'm sorry to interrupt. Um,
it's okay.
but friends down there tell me the lockdowns were pretty severe, maybe more severe than even North Americans have experienced. Early curfews, um, at least formal prohibitions against any kind of gatherings. I know it's impacted a lot of musicians, but you say in spite of this, the music has gone on.
Yeah, well, like everywhere else, it's a fluid situation, and now there are not the curfews are not in place. At least I didn't see any. That would have been earlier in the year. So, and it's hard to compare it to the U.S. because in Cuba there is one system and one set of rules, but in the U.S. every state has their own rules. So, uh, the U.S. is a little chaotic in terms of that.
Also, one thing that must be hitting Cuba so hard is their the importance of visitors and tourists to their economy.
Hmm. Hmm.
And my
Hmm.
heart goes out to all the people that have had the guest houses in their homes, and all the little restaurants that people set up. I just wonder how they're faring.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, crisis. It's a crisis, and apparently our President Biden has done nothing to alter Trump's policies in Cuba, and that's a real disappointment. Um,
It really
it's
is.
it's it's only hurting the average citizen,
Yeah.
and
Let's
we
hope.
hope to see some action there.
Yep. And I guess hope is the operative word, because that's about all we've got in terms of our government, in my opinion, here, doing the right thing at this point. But on a more positive note, let's remind people, or introduce to people your wonderful video archiving project where you're taking
Mm.
years and years of fantastic documentation and making it available to the world via YouTube. Um, can you tell folks a little bit about that?
Yes, and I have to thank Jazz on the Tube for helping me edit this extensive material. It's a new generation for field workers, and as a field worker of grassroots culture, I use video cameras and photos as kind of a diary, and so I've been able to digitize all my videos thanks to the Amherst College Special Collections, and we're editing them into thematic sections and things that can be put public. I've been putting them on my YouTube channel, Ivor Miller YouTube channel, in a very rough fashion, just to share with those who are interested the travails of a researcher starting in Cuba, trying to understand the roots, the African roots of Caribbean culture, and then which propelled me into West Africa itself. And I've been traveling all over the so-called Calabar region, which is the basin of the Cross River of southeastern Nigeria, southwest Cameroon, to meet with practitioners, elders, artists, oral historians, and scholars of all kinds to try to piece together cultural history of the region. And so check in with my YouTube channel. There's a lot of material there from Cuba, particularly, and West Africa.
Great. And of
And I
course,
make it bilingual when possible. Not always possible, but it's a multilingual work in progress.
gotcha. And the the name of that YouTube channel, do you happen to have that handy?
It's my name, Ivor Miller.
Got it. So Ivor
Yeah.
Miller. And of
Hmm.
course, people can dig deeper into Ivor's work, and I hope you do. And to sum it up in a short way, it is tracing and exploring and revealing and documenting how the cultures of an area in West Africa impacted the culture of Cuba, and it's such a fundamental, talk about fundamental, to understanding the Cuban culture, but also helping people in West Africa document their own culture and also see that they had a huge impact on the New World, and this, of course, is a revelation to them in West
Hmm.
Africa. They didn't know the details until individuals like yourself helped bring them the information.
And then there's the added layer that the Caribbean culture has been very impactful in along the coast of Africa, the west coast of sub-Saharan Africa, particularly from Dakar to Angola. Caribbean music has been influential since at least the 1920s. And there's a recent book called Roots in Reverse about the Dakar. It's by Richard Shane, Roots in Reverse, about the Dakar situation. There's the recent movie about Congo music in Kinshasa, the scene in Kinshasa with the Cuban influence, which is just an amazing document. And there's many more examples. Calabar itself has some genres of Caribbean derived music, which we're helping to document and understand, assess, and promote.
And in our understanding of the New World, uh, we have some dominant myths, or they're not myths, they're actually historic realities, but of course they're covered in myth in a sense. We have the Pilgrim Fathers who had their influence on North America, and then the conquistadors who had their influence. But the area that you're helping reveal is the powerful influence of Africa uh,
Mm-hmm.
on the New World, and
Yeah.
it's a heretofore not well documented part of the history of the New World, and it's as
Mm-hmm.
important as the Pilgrims and as the conquistadors and all those high profile uh, cultural influences. So great, Ivor.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
kind of,
yeah, go ahead.
I just want to say it's kind of a silent reality that's hard to grasp because we're taught that it's not there. How can enslaved people found societies? Well, they did, and they're with us. And in the case of the Muñequitos, for example, you see that the lineages continue to expand into the present and influence global music, really.
Yeah, and every
So,
yeah.
yeah.
And every time we turn on the radio and listen to our popular music, if we've got ears, very often we're going to be hearing influences from Cuba, uh, from Africa via Cuba to the music that we listen to and dance to every day. So, whose tune are we I don't think we're dancing to the Pilgrims' tune and any tunes that they wrote. No offense to their music, I'm sure it was fine. And I'm not aware of that I'm dancing to any tunes performed by the Conquistadors. But my life, and I know the life of our listeners, is saturated with the beautiful rhythmic and melodic inventions of this powerful culture, which goes far beyond music, of course. But music is the part of it that we touch every day. Ivor, thank you so much for this brief report. It's going to be very interesting to so many of our listeners who are keenly concerned about what's happening in Cuba right now. And I want to remind
Hmm.
everybody, go to YouTube. We'll put a link below as well. But if you're just hearing this by audio somehow, go to YouTube, search Ivor, Ivor Miller, and prepare. Prepare for an abundance of cultural riches like you can't imagine. Ivor, thanks a lot.
Thank you, Ken, and Jazz on the tube, and Ashe, always Ashe.
Ashe, ashe.